Going live in 2, 1. Hi, hello, Russell. Hi, and welcome to our fireside chat. Looking forward to getting to know you a little and hearing a bit about your projector journey so far. How are you doing today, man?
I'm fantastic. I'm just been working a little bit this morning and excited to be a part of this and see what comes.
Well, it's great to know there's other men projectors out there as well. It's cool.
That's living the experiment.
Yeah, we're underrepresented, so it's great to meet you. And whereabouts are you right now?
I live in New York City.
Cool.
Yeah,
because
so
I've been travel around a bit.
Yeah, I've been traveling a lot for the last 10 years now. I've just been on the move. I had a friend of mine tell me one time, Russell, it's called a vacation. You don't have to take your whole house with you. But I've been traveling between mostly U.S. I was based in Colorado for a couple of years. I've been in New York for about 4 years now. And before that, it was Oregon, Washington, Idaho, California. Bit of a nomad. But yeah, I set up shop in New York City about 4.5 years ago. And I just travel around the country doing massages and a little bit of body work, a little bit of transformational coaching and experimentation.
I'm actually in Colorado right now. I'm up in, do you know Red Feather Lakes? Just up from Fort Collins.
Yeah, beautiful area up there.
It's tough. The view from the office is tough. I'm visiting a friend over here.
Hard to find beauty in Colorado.
tough gig, yeah. And actually, the friend I'm staying with here, he's also a projector, splenic with right angle cross of penetration. The same version. So I've been enjoying a bit of that male energy recently. So
yeah, probably get into some really fun conversations about your life.
Yeah, good time. So tell me, when and how did you first get into human design? Did you go straight in, or did you kind of get in gradually, or how did it roll?
It was kind of gradual. I got a reading gifted to me from a friend of mine when I was going through a breakup, and it was a woman by the name of Rosie Cutter, who is just phenomenal. She spent some time with Ra and Ra's friends in Ibiza. She was a musician out there. And so she's now an astrologer and incorporates a little bit of human design into her astrology. And so she gave me my foundational reading, and that was 7 years ago about. And I got 2 readings from her before I was like, oh, what is this human design thing? And so I started getting into it and researching it a little bit more on my own. And since then, it's just been, rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole. Just
no kidding,
enjoying
right?
the, yeah.
And what was it that stood out from that
all of the
initial reading that you had? What do you remember were the things that she said that stuck with you that you were like, wow, that's so accurate? Or how was it to have that first reading?
Oh, it was when she was talking to me about about how when I initiate things, it's like I always wind up being the one that walks the plank when it all goes up in smoke. And that really resonated, how the things that I was invited into, or the things that people thought that, oh, Russell should do something like this, and they create a space and invitation for it, how easily it goes and it just flows. Whereas when I'm trying to initiate and create and build and like drive people towards what I'm doing, and I'm just initiating them, how it's just it takes so much effort and so much energy, and at the end of the day, it's just this. She used bitterness and success, but it basically just felt like it was a waste of time and effort and energy to just do that. And so when she shared that with me, that was probably the most profound thing, was like, oh, looking back, yeah, I do it when I did initiate, it was pretty awful. And when I do just chill out and let things come, like, that's the most satisfying experiences.
I love it. You know, I really think there's so much mileage to be had just from the fact of being a projector, you know, just that one thing, you know, and becoming more and more masterful, you know, at that waiting for invitation, learning the difference, to calibrate that difference between success and, you know, the bitterness. And yeah, it's just like, it's so simple but not easy, right? Like, how is that for you now, 7 years in, to like, are you pretty good at waiting for the invitation, or do you still feel you're working with it?
Is anybody really ever awesome at it? Yeah, I've learned to develop a relationship with the waiting, because it's, you know, at first you're like, well, then I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to initiate anything. And you wind up like, I've gone into cave mode where I just hide in my cave and wait for the world to call me out and come to me. And it does work doing it that way. But there's a lot of, you know, pent up frustration in that, when it's like, well, when's the invitation going to come? Do I really have to, you know, give up everything that I want in life and wait for things to come? And, you know, it's like, yeah, experiencing the waiting in that way was frustrating. But like, learning to develop a relationship with it, it's not that I'm just sitting on my ass doing nothing and just waiting. I'm doing what makes me happy. I'm learning, I'm sleeping when I need to, I'm going out for a run when I need to, you know, but it's really about like, what do I need in this moment for me? And I provide those things. And then as that happens, then all of a sudden invitations come pouring in. And it's invitations for friendships, or invitations for work, or, you know, I've had clients that just call me and they're staying with a friend in Ontario and they're flying me in for a couple of days to come and do some massages for them. And, you know, it's like all of these fun little adventures that happen in the middle of me providing for myself, you know, and really taking care of myself. So that's been one of the best parts of this projector journey, is like, oh, wait, my job is to take care of me. And then I can start taking care of other people, and I can, you know, have the bandwidth for all these really cool experiences.
Man, I love that. I love it. It's like, yeah, fill yourself up first and give from your overflow, isn't it? You know, like, just like what to do while you're waiting. Well, be really good with yourself, right? Like, you know, take good care. Yeah. Treat yourself like someone that you
meditate when I need to, eat ice cream when I need to, go out and be social when I need to, you know, it's like, just do what I need.
Yeah. And so this is a really interesting thing, right? So you discover you're a projector. Like, when we discover we're a projector, you got to wait for the invitation. You're not here to be a generator. You're not supposed to initiate like a manifestor. That's pretty standard, isn't it? For any projector, like, these are the things we're dealing with. And I'm curious to know, what were the things 7 years ago that were like on your list of things that you thought you wanted at the time, or that were important to you at the time, that you thought, fuck, I'm going to have to give up on those? What was the things that you kind of thought, got to let that go?
Yeah, it's there's a lot of, like, I mean, I have a little bit, like, I have the gate of ideas. I have the 11, and so, like, I always have all of these business ideas and all of these things that I want to create, or that, like, I can see start to finish how I would do this thing, you know. And it's like giving up on the idea that I'm supposed to go out and make these things happen and push and drive the energy to move around what it is that I want. You know, I was really fortunate, because I've had a business that I've been running for 17 years. And so I do have some generator work, but it's not done like a generator anymore. You know, I used to think that to be successful and to make money, I had to put in all of the hours, and, you know, I was doing 60, 70 massages a week,
Wow.
because I could, you know?
Yeah.
And so giving up on that was probably, it was actually really tough to give up on that idea, and give up on the work ethic, because I was really conditioned by, you know, my father, who was very much a generator, and he would go to work every day and work 18, 20 hours a day and come home exhausted. And, you know, that's what he did. And so I always thought work ethic meant go out and work your ass off, and, you know, and then get rewarded at the end of it. So giving up on that was probably the toughest thing.
Cool. We've got a little bit of a lag, so don't worry if we talk over each other a little bit. It's just how it is on this connection. So how was it when you did you kind of like, when you stopped, did you phase it out, or did you stop suddenly? Did you kind of go, right, I'm going cold turkey on generator stuff, or did you kind of dial it back a bit?
Fortunately, I was working in Aspen, and so in Aspen, it's all seasonal.
Right.
And so you work really hard for 3-4 months, and then you get 2 or 3 months off, and then you come back and work for, you know, 3-4 months, and then you get a couple more months off.
Yeah.
And so I was at the tail end of a winter season.
Right.
I was like, well, maybe I'm not going to sign up for 6 doubles next season, you know? So I signed up for the regular amount, which was, you know, 5 shifts. I was working at the St. Regis out there. And so I worked 5 shifts there, and then I ran a private practice over and above that. And I started seeing that my private practice was becoming almost busier than my regular. And so I was able to stop all of it completely, and just respond, of course, generator speak, but, you know, respond to when a client would call me up and ask for an appointment. Now here it is, you know, 6 years after that, and I am actually tuning into my energy about it now, as opposed to, oh, work, okay, yes, done, you know. So it was a slow, but I implemented it pretty quickly. But it's been slow getting to the point where now I trust that, you know, the money will always be there, the opportunities will always come, you know, the work will always be there. I don't need to go out and push and pursue. When I meet people, they're usually interested in what I do, and so I just tell them what I do and give them a card, and who knows, 6 months from now they may call me. You know, but I'm not hounding.
Like you've named some of the fears of, like, you know, what because it's the fear, isn't it, that's like, you know, what stops us from being fully. I mean, I'm, you know, this thing with being a projector, like, you know, I don't ever fit, like, the people I respect most as projectors, they're not the people who I feel are the best at it. They're the ones who are committed to becoming better. You know, it's like, it's not like they've got to a certain level. It's more the fact of them saying, you know, well, I'm, you know, learning more and more and more. It's not like they've already got there. But you know, what is it that stops us from being, like, absolutely radical in the experiment and going, right, I really am just going to wait. And it is, isn't it? It's those fears of, like, will I have anything to eat? Will I have any money? Will I have somewhere to live? You know, what? And it's the mind going, but this is crazy.
Right. You got to take care of yourself. You got to go out and fish it out. Go get it.
And
yeah.
it's understandable, isn't it? Because it's like one individual, one human sovereign being standing up against, you know, the billions of people who are, like, you know, who have there's this collective thing of, like, well, you've got to go out and work to make your bread, you know, to get your bread to eat, to have a roof over your head. You got to go out and make it happen. And yeah, like, I don't know that we have that many role models. And that's why I think it's so cool to hear, especially for me and for projectors new to the experiment, to hear, like, you know, the more of us, the more times we hear, yeah, you know, I shifted things around and got it back on my own terms, and started to chill, and it's going, it's going good. And I just really, that's nice to hear.
Yeah, well, and that's where I got really lucky too, because I really enjoy what I do. And I always have. And so, even when I was working 60, 70 hours, it wasn't a grind. It was a pleasure, but I could also feel how my energy was, it was actually really hard to sleep when I was working that much, because go burn, 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 burn. And each person, it feels like the first appointment of the day. And so, the energy was always there. However, once I pulled it back, like, my energy became so much more potent, where I actually can give more in each session, or I can give what I am in each session. And then it's like, it doesn't draw from me as much as it used to, which was, I think, one of the biggest revelations that I've had, in living this experiment and treating it like an experiment. I mean, sometimes I'll go out and I'll do 15 hours of massage, and then if my body's telling me no and I go against it, then I pay the price and I come back and I'm like, okay, next time I'm offered a 15-hour day, am I going to do it? And I can't say the answer will always be no. But it's consciously engaging with the process. It has been the most fun part, I think.
So interesting. I was having a little quick look at your chart with your 2 channels, and let's pop that up and have a little look for everyone I'm sure there are people curious about your chart. So who are watching on the replay. So here we are. Is it coming through on your screen?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I like to use this app. So I know you've got the advanced chart as well that you've seen, and yeah, so interesting.
Well, projectors, we can't get enough information.
Well, I would love to. I'm very interested about this thing about having a high capacity for doing stuff, but not many projectors can work a 70-hour. I mean, we don't hear, it's not the norm for projectors to say, oh yeah, I can bust out a 70-hour week if I need to. And that's, do you know other projectors who have that similar experience? Or do you feel that you're different to other projectors?
I've met both. I've met both kinds. I've met people who are projectors that are in that. It's been called super slave mode, and I understand why it's called that, because we do have the capacity when we are invited into something correctly, even if it takes a lot of energy. It's like that energy becomes awakened in us through that invitation. And so I do know people projectors that do, 50, 60, 70-hour weeks. It's New York City here too. So, there's definitely that conditioning and the energetic field that supports that. But I also know projectors that don't, that maybe 2 or 3 hours a day, a few days a week is about as much as they can do.
I'd say 95% because of the people that don't have the energy. 90% say that there's a struggle for, hey, I don't have enough energy. So it's very, very interesting to be in that position of, having the choice of, well, I can do a 70-hour week or whatever, or I can do fuck all, or, that having that choice. And I guess one of the parallels I feel here is that this whole thing about projectors aren't supposed to have children. Projectors aren't here to work.
Right.
So, there's people who are radical and they'd say, well, you shouldn't. And then there's other people, like, I'm more of the school of like, hey, well, I'll do what the hell I want to do. So,
yeah.
if someone says, hey, it's true for me to have children, I feel like when we speak with Inese, she's like, I don't know if you've met her, but she's like, I love being a mum. It feels really correct for me to be a mother. And so I think it's dangerous to kind of say you should never work 70 hours a week. So I find it very refreshing to hear you say, well, sometimes I do, and then I see what happens. So that's you know, it's like, sure, here's what the theory says, but here's life. You know, it's like, here's my life.
Yeah. Well, and that's the one thing that I took away from, I mean, I listened to a lot of Ra's stuff. I have a lot of audio. And so, you know, in listening to Ra, you know, it's called an experiment. You know, we're not supposed to take it at face value and just take the information as like gospel. You know, we're supposed to test it and try it and see how it works with our energy. And, you know, and so that was one of the gifts that I got early on, was just like, this is an experiment. You know, sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. But if you go into it thinking, you know, oh, I'm doing this all right, and then, you know, you get to the end and it's there's a lesson there, or there's a price to pay, or whatever it is, if you're attached to that, then you can be like, oh, well, that was a waste of fucking time. Or if you look at it like an experiment, then it wasn't a waste of time. It was, okay, I tried it this way, my body said this, I did this, and, you know, that's the cost of doing business, or that's the cost of not listening to my body. And then if I listen to my body, what is the outcome of that? You know, because you can listen to your body and not work when your body says that maybe you have enough, but, you know, you go into that fear mode where, you know, I don't know if I want to spend my energy doing that. If your body says to work and you don't, then there's a price there too. So it's really interesting. It's been a fascinating journey as far as that goes.
Can we explore your split definition? Because that's, you know, I'm split definition as well. And we actually bridge each other, in fact, because I've got, if we look at your body graph, I've got gate 16 and you've got gate 48. You know about split definition, don't you? And bridging.
You got all the skills. Yep, I got the depth.
Together we got the talent. So you've got, let's see now, you've got at least 3 bridge gates. So you've got the 16 on the throat, which connects through that 1648. Then you've got the 20 on the throat that can connect the 57, and then the 10 on the G. Mm-hmm. So your 57 and your 48 are ready to bridge up and bridge the split. And how is that? Do you sometimes find like my experience is like, sometimes I feel like I'm trying to run in 3 directions all at the same time, and I sort of feel like this but that, you know. So how do you feel that on your own to start with?
Oh yeah, no, I'm always like, my energy, if I'm just sitting here with nothing to do, I'll have like 50 different things. I'll start doing one thing and then I'm like, oh wait, no, I got to go do this other thing. And then I'm like, I mean, it seems really frenetic. So when I'm around somebody who does bridge that, the freneticism stops, and it's almost like this breath that you can take, you know, and it just feels a little more solid, I guess. That's how I experience when my split gets bridged. It just doesn't feel as frenetic. It feels a little bit more solid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really, really interesting to, I mean, how is that as well in relationships, in personal relationships, professional relationships? Do you ever look at the charts of the people you're massaging and work with that?
Rarely am I able to get a birth time out of somebody that I'm massaging.
Right.
It doesn't seem like a natural ask.
So what time were you born?
Right. Let's just make sure, because this will, you know, tell me what kind of massage that we're going to be doing.
Yeah, let me massage your ego center here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it'd be a nice change of pace from the emotional that we're usually doing. But the people that I do, it's interesting, you know, in personal relationships, I also do some, I mean, in transformational coaching, when I do that, I generally pull charts and I can talk to them a little bit more about, and kind of guide them in their, or into their experiment, I think. But when I do pull a chart and I do see that bridge, there are people that, you know, when they have the gate of skills, it's almost like the exchange that happens is like the giving voice to to all of this potential. You know, it's almost like I say being a 2-4, it's almost like I'm a Lamborghini with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake, and I'm pushing them down at the same time. And it's like when I get that bridge, it's like I feel like the brake ease off, and so it feels like some power can move, or something can be created, or something can be built, or there's just a resonance between me and the other person.
Yeah,
so, but it's pretty palpable resonance.
Yeah, I definitely have felt that same foot on the not necessarily a Lamborghini, but you know, one foot on the gas, one on the brake sort of scenario. But it's actually been really interesting for me this year. Like, probably the biggest breakthrough has been having people around me and working in team. And you know, and it's different scenarios, different teams, different things, different parts of the world, different experiences. But that feeling of like, I feel so much more like I'm you know, on my own I'm good, but I just feel like so much more can flow with a relationship. So it's interesting that you describe that so clearly, with that being in relationship with others there. So yeah. So do you feel like you said you felt like the energy's got somewhere to go, right? So if we look at the pressure coming into the root being the brown one, and then it's flowing up that channel of transformation to the spleen, and then I guess what you're saying is if someone with the skill like myself or someone comes along, then that can flow up into the throat, and that's like that manifestation can take place. Is that how you feel it, or is it just not specific to the channels, or like how does, because I'm trying to, I haven't yet got that awareness of, oh, this is my spleen and that's that energy. So I'm just wondering, you've been in a bit longer than I have, so is that massive?
I don't feel it in the specific channels. It's funny, I do feel people's personality in my body sometimes, like when it's bridged. So I can tell when somebody's really funny, because all of a sudden I start thinking jokes, or I start feeling like more jovial. Like I can tell when somebody's funnier, or if somebody's really more pensive, then it feels melancholic. You know, if somebody's more if somebody's like just lighter and giddier, then I feel that sensation. It's really interesting. But I don't necessarily feel like, oh, you have the gate of, you know, skills, that means that we should build something, you know, whatever it is. I don't feel that necessarily. I just feel the resonance, or the I guess connection, but it's not specific to channels, not yet. I mean, maybe I should dive a little bit more into it and see if I can experiment.
I don't know, man, because for me, like I like to go with what's real, and what I feel is real is like I'm right here, I'm enjoying having a conversation with you, right? So then we can look at the chart and go, oh look, we bridge each other, and what about this, what about, but it's kind of like life first, chart second.
Yeah.
Chart helps me to understand, you know. It's like, but this is one of the reasons I love doing this, because every time I speak to someone, you know, by the time I've spoken to like a few hundred people, then I'll be like, oh yeah, that guy was cross penetrating. You know, you spot the patterns, don't you, across different people, and so that's
yeah, definitely.
And actually, you know, this thing about having the capacity to work, have a high output, it's exactly the same as the friend I'm staying here with, who's also cross of penetration. He's also got that same channel. He's also splenic. He's a 1-3. But I'm wondering if, you know, having that channel of transformation, being right angle cross of penetration, it's like, should we have a little look at the description of your incarnation cross here?
We can, yeah.
Let me pop that up, and I mean, this is one I don't know if you may work from the definitive book, but this is one that I find a useful starting point. Let's see here. So you've got right angle cross penetration 4, which is based on Sungate 54. Gate 54 ambition, gate 53 beginnings, those are on the conscious, and then you've got 57 intuitive insight, which is kind of coming up to be bridged as one of your bridge gates, and then gate 51 shock on the heart there. So it says here, your cross carries the energy of getting noticed through your ambition. Because of your ambitious approach, people will recognize what you do. You also carry the energy to get to the point. You're not likely to beat around the bush. Just get to it and get it done. This can be both positive and negative depending on other people's expectations. If you're asked to be thorough with an assignment, your tendency to do it as quickly and easily may result in unmet expectations. How does that land?
Yep.
How is it to live there?
Oh, it's you know, the ambition is definitely, I think the beginning energy, you know, I think back to when I had a 9-to-5 job. Now it's more being an independent contractor, you know, I don't experience it nearly as much. But when I was in more of a 9-to-5, I did some work as a kind of a career counselor. I always said my job was to talk people I've never met into spending $12,000 they don't have to go to a school they've never seen and to move across the country to do it with zero face-to-face time. It was all over the phone. And so, but what wound up happening is, like, I would be absolutely left to my own devices on how to do this. And I started, at first, I was very quick. I was very, I would push people to do things very quickly, and push is the wrong, you know, energy. It's the right word, but the wrong energy of the word. But I would create a pathway for them to get things done very quickly because I just see things very efficiently. And by doing that, I actually wound up being the catalyst to rewrite a lot of the standard operating procedures within that position, because when left to my ambitious nature and my ability to just think efficiently and process efficiently, I just changed what it is that they were doing. It used to take, I want to say, 30 days to get somebody from, yes, they want to go to school, to all done, and I could get it done in 5 days. And so
Nice.
they wound up taking that.
Getting to the point. Yeah.
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 Yeah, but the unmet expectations, because it is trying to get to the point. I notice this in conversations when somebody's saying something and it bridges, you know, what I was feeling, or an intuitive, you know, thing that I was getting, and something that they had said. It's almost like, okay, stop talking, we got it, and then we get into it. But I don't necessarily dive in and drill down to the minutia of the expectation. And so when I don't do that, there are things that I can miss.
Okay. That sounds a little bit like that thing about being a manifesting generator where they skip steps. Is it? Do you feel like it's the same or different?
No, I feel like it's different.
You know
because
they
it's
say
not necessarily skipping steps.
Uh-huh. We have a delay.
Oh, what were you saying? They say manifesting generator what?
Well, I mean, there may be people who don't know what I'm talking about. So, you know, that thing as a manifesting generator, it's like, okay, you're a generator, but then you have the capacity to, because you've got the motor on the throat, get things done that bit quicker. But then we look back at it and it's like, okay, you skipped a few steps and there's your work isn't as. So I think what you're saying is it's not like that for you. For you, it's more the case of the other person may have expected that they were going to enjoy the process a bit more, or something like that, or that, like, what have you got an example of the unmet expectations?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. So my daughter's actually a manifesting generator steps, where, you know, she'll get it done very quickly, but she won't get it done 100%. She won't get it. It's if somebody tells me, like, I have a job that needs to be done, sure, we'll say it's in a coaching session. somebody says that this is their intention, these are their goals, this is what they want to accomplish. I can lay out a plan for them in life, but if I'm not actually drilling into their all of their expectations, then they're left with unmet expectations. And though I got the job done, the process I give them is helpful and gets them where they want to be, they may get this feeling of, oh, but I really wanted to experience it this way, or this was an expectation that I had that wasn't given voice because I'm that getting to the point. I don't want to waste time on the story. I don't want to waste time on or energy on all of the little tiny details that may or may not inform a slightly different process. At the end of the day, I'd rather spend a little bit of time, understand the arc of where you want to go, and then all the other little expectations. If you're going to get there, you're going to get there. It doesn't really matter how, and that's kind of how I experience it. But the other person could be left with a feeling of unmet expectation because I did get to the point. I didn't hear everything all together. That's kind of how I experience it.
That's really clear. It's almost like if someone's saying, well, I'm here at A and I want to get to B, and they better damn well say if there's something else about it they want, because you're going to go, okay, A to B, straight line, boom, there are the steps. But then maybe they didn't share that actually they enjoyed taking the scenery around here a bit, and they wanted to go around see that lake on the way, and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm wondering if you notice a difference with splenic and emotional, because I'm imagining, like, for me, I love that, like, right, boom, get the job done. But I can imagine if someone's emotional authority, like, they might need time to really get clear on exactly what they want and how they want it to be. And I don't know if do you notice it, because you and I are both splenic, right? Do you find that different with different people?
I mean, it is different with different people. I've been seeing this girl for about 4 months, and she's an emotional generator, and totally filled in. Our composite chart is everything but the ego. So the ego is still undefined, but everything else is lit up like a Christmas tree. But how I experience it with her, like, she's very much been conditioned, truth in the now, intuitive, like, let's go based on our intuition, where everything, we have access to right now. And so she builds all of these things that, she has all this energy going out in all these different directions that may or may not work out and may or may not, so she should be riding her emotional wave more than she does. So that's really fun. But when I deal with emotional people, it's almost like I have to take that into account with the guidance, because I might have an answer right now, but if I hit you with an answer right now, it can feel really sharp, or it can feel like you just got smacked with a baseball bat. Whereas if I introduce the idea to you and say, well, see how you feel about this, and let's talk about it in, a day or two, then they can ride their wave and gain clarity. And then the idea feels more like an aha as opposed to a
yeah, cool. Yeah, that's really clear. It's really clear, isn't it? It's so interesting how to, like, when you know your own design, you kind of know the pointy bits, the bits that how the bits can work well, or what the shortfalls are, or it's super powerful. Has there been anything? What's been your biggest awareness from human design that has? What's been your single biggest awareness that has helped you to be more effective or more successful? Or you obviously mentioned waiting for the invitation, but apart from that, what's been the most helpful thing?
The most helpful for me was, we're living in a time where the conversation is about how we are all things at all times, right? And so it's the epitome of the homogenized world. We are all things at all times. And so we're dealing with a lot of people that are all things at all times, and understanding, like, to be that, it's not untrue. That's really where the self and the not self come together, but it's the experience of the other has been, it's no longer this personal affront. There's no attack. It's really, it's shifted my perspective to where The science of differentiation allows me to be everything at all times. This is just a unique articulation of it, you being the same. And so when I come together, there's really a curiosity about the other person's articulation of who they are, what their energy is. And, being projectors, we're so, I think the beginning of the process is so internally focused. We're like, well, who am I? What am I? If I don't function this way, how do I function? And once you get to the other side of that, you recognize, like, it's not about me and how I function. That's really good knowledge to have. And I can see how, through my experimentations, how that's accurate. But in experiencing other people in relationships, social situations, personal relationships, even one-time interactions, it's like I can meet people with a curiosity as opposed to taking every experience personally. That's been the biggest shift, I think.
That's so powerful, man. Like, it's almost like there's these questions, like, the first question, because it's interesting, isn't it? When you first come into human design, as you always want to know about yourself, right? But then as projectors, the second part of the journey is the other, isn't it? We're not here to look at our belly button. We're here to see others. So, like, there's two questions, aren't there? The first question is, why am I not like other people? Why can, for most projectors, like, why do other people get success when they go out and get after it and work hard and make it happen, apparently, and I don't? Why? And then it's like, oh, I'm a projector, right? But then there's the question, like, why aren't other people like me? Isn't it? It's like it's so obvious to me. Why isn't it obvious to everyone else? Or why don't other people do this thing? But then it's the science differentiation. So it's like, oh, hey, that person's there, that person's there. And it's like, like Michael Franti song, all the freaky people make the beauty of the world. It's like, we're all freaking different, So, and I think something that comes across in you so clearly is this acceptance. What if we use human design as a tool to really, because really to see the other person is really to accept them, right? And it's like, if the other person, we're always going to be a mix of ourself and our not self. So if I see you and I'm like, oh, this is interesting, and I'm like, oh, he does this. That could be his self. That could be his not self. How do I know anyway? But that curiosity is so refreshing, and I really enjoy being around projectors all like that. And it does my head in when people come in with that kind of very like, oh, you should be doing this or that or the other. I'm like, listen, I'm doing my experiment, How can I tell them I'm doing it wrong? It's like, hey, I'm doing my experiment here, So that's, maybe it's just I spend too much time in Facebook groups of projectors, but.
No, I it's funny because I actually know a lot of projectors that do that, that everything is about what you should and shouldn't be doing. Right. It's like, I have a lot of projector friends that, like, we'll get into a conversation and what's that?
What's with that? Like, how? Because it's a lot, isn't it? It's like a little bit of dangerous thing.
Because we're programmed that way. We're programmed that, and when I say programmed, I mean at the way Raw says programming, like the deep program, how we are imprinted and come into the world. Like, we are programmed to see a picture and organize energy. And so when somebody's sitting there bitching about their mom and their relationship with their mom and all of this stuff, it's like our natural inclination is to be like, you are spending so much energy in that, like, negative cycle, in that, self-deprecating, self-defeating, like, all of your energy is being taken up in that way. Like, I would be not living according to who I am if I let you waste your energy like that.
I find it exhausting
because it's a waste of energy
to not do anything in that situation, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so it's like we're naturally programmed to want to guide energy that's just being wasted.
Yeah.
And we have the ability to see and to feel the frequency. And I think that when we're living in accordance with our design, our frequency shifts. And so we have the ability to shift the frequency of others. in that. And so it's really easy to get locked in that. For me, staying curious, and it's really fun because I've created a separation where if somebody wants to unload their problems and find out what I would do or find out what they should do, that's what they need to pay me for, you know, because like I don't, that can be an endless vacuum. So we can enjoy our friendship, we can enjoy our relationship. You can talk to me about all the stuff your mom's doing, but the minute it becomes, you know, this thing you need me to fix, you know, coaching session. But the rest of it, I can just be curious about who you are and what you're doing, and, you know, find the beauty in the juxtaposition, you know, seeing the joke and laughing.
Yeah, it's nice. I personally find it really, really hard to like, I've got a friend, and he says that he talks about how you complain up. So it's like, you know, if you've got people working under you or you're a manager and you've got some problem, you don't tell them, you complain up. So it's almost like he feels as though if he is complaining about something to me, that it's kind of almost like I should be honored. And I don't think yet have, because I've got the hatchet, I've got Sungate of Revolution 49. So I want to fucking get my sword out and start fucking chopping, you know. And it's actually exhausting to me, because I used to obviously just sit there, and I've got the gate of the listener. I used to sit there and be like, oh, I'm supposed to listen because that's what you're supposed to do, and it's like I don't know. It just doesn't. I mean, we don't have to be the same. That's the whole point, isn't it? But I
right, yeah.
Really exhausting to just sit and listen to all that, you know. It's
it's funny because I have the gate of the listener as well, but I also have the gate of shock. And so with the gate of shock, you know, there's a couple of couple of ways that energy works. But one of the ways shock works is like I get to shock people into I guess a frequency shift. And so when somebody's just complaining, you know, it's like I can tell them something that maybe the average person couldn't get away with. And it's like, well, if you look back at your life, can't you see how you're at the heart of all of your issues? You know, and I say something like that, and it turns them so inwardly focused. And I'm like, okay, cool story, bro. Like, if you want to unravel that for a little while, we can, you know, hang out, or I need to go take a nap, or I need to go, like, if I want to be doing something, then if I want to be listening, then I'll listen. But the moment it becomes exhausting and I don't want to do it, then you can always find an out. You can always, you know, and that's one of the ones that I usually use is like, get them thinking about how they're contributing to their problem, and then I leave that alone. But that's how I exit.
Yeah, thank you. It does. You're totally right. It just comes down to clarity, doesn't it? It's that clarity of, is this serving me or not? And if not, I'm out of here.
Yeah, and it's really easy to get lost in. I mean, even now, I mean, I'm 7 years into my experiment, and even now, like, I'll listen to somebody drone on for a half hour, 45 minutes before I'm like, wait a minute, I haven't said anything. Do I even want to be here? You know? So, I mean, it's nothing's ever perfect, and it's, you know, but that gate of the listener, it does. I mean, it's naturally who I am. I will sit there and listen to a story for 2 or 3 hours, and if it's entertaining, great. And if it's not, you know, before I would just get lost in the story, and now it's like I see.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. This is gate 51 is on the wheel. That's the gate of shocks. That's a hanging gate on an undefined center. And then you've got gate 13 as part of your channel 1333 from the G center up to the throat. So how's that channel? Can you share a little bit about that one? The prodigal.
The 1333, yeah. You know, it's interesting because the sum is greater than the parts, so it does have the listener. But more than that, like when I travel, because I do travel a fair amount. I've gone, I mean, I travel all over the country for work, and then I've been to Peru a few times. I lead ayahuasca retreats down there. I go out to Thailand. I just got back from 15 days in Egypt. And so like when I travel, it's like I can actually really feel my rightness. everything's very, I take it all in. It's very receptive. And so it's almost like if I were listening to a conversation, but the conversation is the experience of being there. And so I'm taking everything in while I'm there. And then when I come back, I have the channel of the prodigal. I find that when the time is right for me to share a story, I share a story, and it's like the person is experiencing that story with me. They can feel the details, and they can feel connected to the experience almost as though they're having it, which has been really fun. But that's how I experience
it's like
the prodigal.
Right back there to that time and place with your storytelling.
Yeah, and they're feeling the emotions of it, and they're feeling the expansiveness or the contractions or the glee or the fear, whatever the emotions were. It's like that is through my voice that frequency is channeled, and they're able to access that. So I've experienced that quite a few times because I like telling stories, and I like sharing about my experiences and the lessons I learn, and things like that.
Yeah, nice. I love feeling the difference between someone who's got the G center connected to their throat and me who's got the ajna connected to my throat. So it's like there's a whole different quality of just listening to someone talk, with that energy from the G just flowing up into the throat, and it's yeah. I can really feel like that's not me.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I'm different.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's sort of like, it's like I feel logical, and I like being logical, but I also sometimes I'm like, when G to throat people talk, there's something about it that's like, it seems to really draw people in. And I find like I'm a bit hit and miss, it's like, yeah. So storytelling's like a thing for me to like, I had a big focus on learning it. So it's inspiring to hear that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So,
yeah. And see, I feel like I feel what it feels like for me, like sitting in this conversation with you, because I can feel your logical process and the articulation of it. So through your voice, like I can hear your logical process and how everything is synthesizing. And for me, it's like, when I'm sharing a story, it can feel, unless it's a story I've told before, it can feel really frenetic, because if I'm trying to share from my head or I'm trying to share from my memory, then it's a very frenetic process. And so I'm always trying to find the right word or trying to find the right, and so it feels frenetic. But when I'm sharing from here, it's almost like this, it flows, and so to be able to have both of those things at the same time, awesome.
Yeah, I get that. I really get that. I mean, I guess that's someone who's a self-projected projector who has, three centers defined, or their single definition with 4 centers. I guess they have both of those feeding into the throat, which, yeah, I don't think we've interviewed anyone who's, I can't remember all. I know Ron's. I know you've seen some of the interviews. So we had Ron, who has the top 2. Then he's got a split, and then he's got the other 2. But yeah, very very interesting. So will you say a little bit more about 2-4, because that's the hermit opportunist. So it's got the second line, which is very much about leave me alone. I want to do my art, and then the 4th line, which is all about the opportunities coming through your network of people. So that's quite a contradiction, isn't it? I mean, it sounds like you've got your sort of your hermit cave. I don't know if that's how it is in New York, and you also go and network with people. So will you say a little more about this 2-4 profile?
Yeah, I felt the 4 a lot more before I met human design, and even in the beginning of my experiment, because when you see people, people like being seen. And so in a social situation, it's like you can be the ultimate social butterfly, taking one person in at a time, but like talk with somebody here and make an impact, and then you talk to somebody here and make an impact. And so you can build this, and it's not about building a network, it's about enjoying the social situation. But what it does is it builds this network of people that that feel your impact.
Right.
And so when I was, when I go and I'm a healer and a body worker, then we could just talk about this and have a great conversation. Then it might be, 2, 3, 4, 5 months down the road, somebody will give me a call and they're, hey, I was just thinking about you. I thought you might be right for this opportunity. I get clients that refer me out. It's all word of mouth. And so doing it that way, it's like I'm able to, it's funny you put it, the cave, because I actually call my apartment my cave because it's where I go. It's my fortress of solitude. I have everything I need here. I never need to leave my apartment, especially being in New York City, because you get delivery for everything.
Right. And
so the hermit's really happy. I also have the gate of aloneness too. And so that amplifies that hermiting. And I do go into periods where I need that alone time. I feel it like I'm, it's a graphic way of putting it, but I'm douching the world out of my system. So I go out being a highly empathic person and dealing with the public and dealing with people and feeling everything my cognitions feel like feeling. And so like I feel everything. I take in everything into my body. And so coming into this space, I'm able to just release that and douche it out of my system. So I use the hermit phases to just really take care of myself, indulge in me, order a pizza and watch TV. And then when enough of that has happened, I leave it to the universe to teach me my cycles. But when enough of that has happened, then inevitably I'll get a call and somebody will need body work here. I have a client who's coming in from a tour they've been on for the last year, and they're coming into town for the next 5 days. So they want to see me every day for 5 days. And so that's an opportunity for me to connect with them, make a little bit of money, live out my purpose. And it's a call out from the hermit phase. And so when I do that, all of a sudden I have more stories to share. I can be a little more social. And then when that energy runs out, it's back to the cave. And I let my close friends know. I call it mountain topping.
Okay.
I'm going to my mountaintop.
Sounds a little bit like having a fuck it day. Is that although it sounds a bit more sophisticated than having a fuck it day.
Or listen, or fuck it month.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, I mean, listen, don't limit yourself, Dustin.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. Raluca's, she just shared that she's a second line as well, and she loves that way you described that douching out the stuff of other people. I mean, I guess if you're being PC, you might say you were cleansing your aura, but yours is much clearer picture.
Well, listen, I'm waking up as myself as much as possible.
Yeah, but that sounds like that's a very natural. Like I mean, you just sort of dropped that in the conversation about letting the universe show you your rhythms. That's very, very powerful, isn't it? And I think that's, it's very easy to, people are emotional, or women who have a cycle, it's very, much more commonly spoken about these natural rhythms and flows. But, for us as splenic projectors, it's still, of course, there's a rhythm. Energy comes and goes. All those individual gates have their pulse. They're on, they're off. There's no energy. Then there's energy. There's no invitation. Then you're a hermit. Then you get called out to go and do something, and you're in your fourth line. Then it's like, okay, I'm done. I'm back. It's like, but it's with the way you describe it, there's a real ease to just, because the rhythms are there, right? So fighting them, it is exhausting, isn't it? It's like to fight those natural rhythms, whereas to actually be like, oh, okay, today I'm here, I'm there, then I'm there, then I'm here, and it sounds very graceful. I'm sure it's not always. But.
Guess we're in a sleeping day today. That's really how I wake up. It's like, I guess I'm in a sleeping day, or I guess I'm gonna go for a run today. It's almost like a curiosity. But let me share a little bit about the pain part of it, because you know, it's like I don't want it to seem like, oh, you know, 7 years you have it all together. Like there's a lot of pain in this too. You know, I've spent the last this summer. Like I traveled a lot. I was in Peru in May. I was in California, Idaho, Utah in June, back to New York in July. Then I went to Colorado at the end of July, or middle of July, and then I'm back to Idaho. And then I do a cross-country motorcycle trip to bring my bike out west. Then I go off to Egypt for a little over 2 weeks. Then I come back, and it's like I have this freak out panic mode, because you know, that's 5 months of travel. I'm doing a little bit of work on the road, but like I'm not making as much as I am when I'm sitting still and being available in one place. And so
I mean, I'm freaked out just listening to that itinerary, you know, like that I couldn't even keep up. Like my channel of structuring is trying to figure it all out, and it's like, what, 5 months? Jesus Christ.
Yeah. It's every single time it was like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to go visit family, so that's what I'm doing here. And it's, you know, it's like everything had an engagement or an experiment or something attached to it.
Sure.
But, you know, but doing all of that, when I get to the end of it, I was like, one, really exhausted. My back went out. My body was telling me, Russell, you have done way too much. It took 3 weeks for my back to give up. And then the other part of it was the money part of it, because, you know, I would joke to my friends, like, I'm going back to New York to find out if I have a business to get back to. Because when you're gone for 4 or 5 months, you know, it's like, do clients come? Will they, you know? And so it's like, my intention was to come back and get my body right and then get back into the swing of things. And before I'm even texting people and letting them know I'm back, I start hearing from clients that I haven't heard from in a year. You know, wow. And they're asking me if I'm in New York, am I here, you know, am I available? And so it's like really even in the painful parts of it, like learning to trust that the cycles are running no matter what, you know, like, and that was a really big revelation for me too, is even if I'm not living in alignment, even if I'm going out and, you know, initiating, or I'm letting people know, or I'm, you know, chasing down business or clients or whatever it is, the background like rhythms are still running. And so I don't need to put my energy into that, into the freak out part of it. But the freak out part of it is very felt, you know, as a projector. It's like, you know, I do feel those things. Then it's almost like I'm learning how to operate, or how to get back in sync with those cycles. But it's all about the cycles and the rhythms. We might not be riding emotional waves, but we're still living in cycles.
Right. So many different little pulses and things. And yeah. So I mean, if you kind of, because it's interesting, isn't it? Because we explored human design from the perspective of the not self, right? Because we're trying to figure it out. That's how and that's why when you start, isn't it? Like you get your first chart, and it doesn't say your theme is success. It says your not self theme is bitterness. You know, it's like, here's your not self. But then, like, having that curiosity of exploring it, because you know, most of us are conditioned to the man-made rhythms, and then it's like whatever opening people have, like you mentioned, ayahuasca or whatever people are doing, whether it's through human design, and then it's like, oh, okay, wow, there's all these other things that we don't see, and there's these natural rhythms, and then you think, wow, if I'm really surrendered to these natural rhythms, and then I have to try and, like, imagine going the other way, imagine like total surrender, and then going, actually, I have to make myself fit into a 9 to 5, a timetable that that's this artificial thing that may sometimes line up, but often won't. And it's like,
right.
So not only do you not get the energy from being in alignment with the natural rhythms, which isn't always easy, but it's a rhythm. Then you don't get the boost from that. you've got to use energy fighting the natural rhythm, and then you've got to use your mind to come up with some artificial rhythm, and it just sounds exhausting.
Right.
How do people do that?
Yeah, that's a fun part of the journey.
I'm sure you help people with that with your coaching work as well, to help people to come back to.
Yeah, because I mean, it really, and especially, I mean, I say especially, but, you know, New York is a very mentally driven place. You know, there's a lot of mental energy here. And people are, I mean, you can feel it when you're around, like people living in their heads, and everything's very, they speak to you from their head, which, I forget the percentage of the open head center versus defined head center. But I mean, there's a lot of people with open head centers. And so if they're projecting all of this mental energy out into the world, it can be exhausting. And so teaching people how to come back into the body and how to feel their resonance and start living in alignment with that, you know, I call it the binary response, because your body tells you yes and no. If we live in a binary existence, then if you can tap into the binary response of the body, we get the splenic no. I find the spleen says no much more sharply than it says yes. And so, like, I basically take that as carte blanche to do what makes me happy. And then when my spleen says no, then knock it off.
Yeah,
or stop.
splenic authority. It's a thing, isn't it? It's like, well, you can do what the fuck you want until you shouldn't do it. You know, it's like, but
Yeah.
it's not because you're going to get, because the authorities. It's not like, you know, that external. Oh, you'll get in trouble. Don't do that. Or, oh, you can't do it. It's like, I'm going to do what I want until that little inner voice goes, no, that's bad if you do that.
Yeah. Oh, and sometimes it's like this nervous. It's really funny. I was walking down the street, and I mean, I walk wherever I want, you know, and so I'm walking wherever I want. I'm moving between standstill traffic. I think it was on Broadway, standstill traffic.
Uh-huh.
I'm walking between cars, and I feel my whole body stop me. It was like my nervous system just yanked me back.
Wow.
And so I stood. I just stopped moving. And this bike went right in front of me, and it would have hit me if I would have kept going.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that was the splenic, like, nope, stop. And so I'd stop, and then, you know, I got called an asshole, and, you know, whatever. But but yeah, it's really interesting how if you learn to, like, just listen to it, how nuanced it can be, but also, like, I mean, to have something like that where my awareness that biker was not in my awareness, but to have my body be like, nope, something's going to happen if you don't stop.
Yeah, it's like you get that hit, and then the mind's trying to interpret it, right? But it stopped your body straight away. It wasn't a thinking thing. It's too quick for thought, isn't it? It's like, nah, stop. Yeah.
As much as I can try to, like, get out of my head and stop trying to justify anything, that the better it is. My head is basically so I can tell people what they think.
Nice. Good. Oh, well, how are we doing? Is there anything, we covered quite a lot of ground there. Is there anything else that you want to share about your journey so far, or anything that covered? Oh, obviously there's loads, but have you got any?
Yeah, I mean, there's a
projector story.
There's a ton projector stories. Oh God, I mean, I have a lot, and then I don't. You know, even in my friendships, like, I've learned about boundary setting as a projector, which I think is actually really important to talk about, because, you know, we get really good at managing our own energy, so much so we'd rather sit at home and do nothing than, you know, go out and engage with the world. And so, learning how to boundary set, like, I have friends that actually rely on my guidance. Like, we talk about relationship issues, and they rely on my guidance, and it's really good friends that I have, and not people that are going to be clients or, you know, anything like that, but learning how to actually say, oh, you know, I don't have the energy for this. I don't, this isn't what I want to do. Okay, well, we're done with that. So, whatever it is, like I can set these boundaries with people that are close to me and let them know, what's in alignment with my energy and what's not. So when those moments come where they're just droning on and I'm done, I can just tell them, okay, I'm done. And they'll respect it and they'll understand, because it's coming from a space of, like they know they can drone on forever. And so I think that boundary setting has been a really cool part of the journey as well. Like learning what's my boundaries, how do I support myself in my projectorhood,
It's so simple, isn't it, to say, like what you just said is such a simple thing, isn't it? Like just to say, actually, I don't have the energy for this right now. But so not easy, simple but not easy.
Yeah. Yeah, you almost have to. I mean, with my friends, I say, I love you. We're friends. I get you. I get it. Great, but we're done. We're done with this. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And it's not done out of malice. It's not done because I think that they're, a piece of shit that can't handle their own business. But it's because they've used up enough of my time and my energy, and I'd rather watch Orange Is the New Black, and let's go into like completely impersonal drama. That's way easier to stomach.
Yeah, if you want drama, you've got Netflix, right?
Yeah, exactly. And when that's not quite scratching the itch, to have your friends tell you about their relationships, it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. So I'll tell you a projector story. It's how I actually moved to New York, because I was actually living in Colorado, and I swore I would live in Colorado for the rest of my life, just because it was so beautiful there. And doing the 4 months on, 3 months off, you get to travel 5 months a year, work 7 months a year. It sounded great, and it was interesting because when I was working there, I would get people from all over the world, and they'd say, "Oh, do you ever get to Ohio? Do you ever get to New York? Do you ever get to," and they, just in case I'd ever want to go there. And so I'd actually keep track of people's names and numbers whenever they would ask if I ever get somewhere. And in 1 week, I remember I had 10 people. They were all clients. It was during the busy season in Aspen. So 10 people in 1 week were like, you should consider New York. You should consider setting up a practice in New York. There's nobody that does this kind of work in New York, And so 10 people were in 1 week. I was like, okay, this feels like an invitation. This feels like, it wasn't an explicit, like, come to New York, I'll put you up, we'll get you business. But it was 10 people in 1 week. I was like, there might be something to this. So I started looking at all of my client contacts that were in New York. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give this 3 months. I'll wait till the end of off season. Instead of traveling, I'll just go to New York. I'll take some stuff there. And I need to make, I think I said like $15,000 in 3 months to see if, because if I make that, then I know I can stay in New York. And if I don't make it, fuck it, I'll go back to Aspen. That's a great life. And so I caught it. I caught a flight. I stayed at the, I think my going away present from the St. Regis was 5 free nights at the St. Regis, New York. I used those 5 nights to go out and apartment hunt. And knowing what I know now about New York, it takes forever to get into an apartment. So 5 days was quote unquote not enough, but I found an apartment within 5 days. I contacted everybody on the list, and then I just waited. And I would have people come up to me on the street and ask me if I was I'd have a massage table and they'd ask me for a card. And I probably booked 15, 20 sessions with people that just walk up to me on the street. And then people started referring other people out. And, before long, I got a phone call from a client that I'd had for 12 years that lived in Utah. And she found out I moved to New York and said, I hate my renters. If I gave you my apartment for mortgage and maintenance fees, would you move in so I don't have to worry about my place?
Wow.
And so I have an apartment in Midtown Manhattan, for mortgage and maintenance fees. And, all of this thing, I gave myself 3 months to do it. And that was 4.5 years ago.
That
so
sounds
it's
like a real fourth line invitation as well to stay somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. well, because before that, it was like this company put a wall up in a living room and a wall up in a bedroom. So they had a 1-bedroom with a living room, and they rented it as a 4-bedroom, and we each paid like $1,300 a month for a place I couldn't even like stretch my arms out in. It was ridiculous. So to go from that to 650 square feet, I feel like I'm living in a palace. This feels very palatial.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was that a place to live. It was perfect, you know, and it comes every year. She asked me if I'm going to be staying, and yeah, it's pretty amazing, you know, stepping into that invitation and then seeing what other invitations come when you're living in that alignment. It was really cool.
I really think projectors, like, it's like we're here to do things in our own way. It's like we're here to do things a bit differently. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, normal is so normal. It's like so boring. It's like so like may or may not work, you know. It's like, and I'm not saying that every projector is going to have the same experience, but I do feel like we all have our own versions, you know, of that
Mm-hmm.
magic that happens when we're in our, not just projectors, I'm sure, but, you know, when we are in alignment with the cycles and we are in our flow. And it's not to say there aren't challenges, but
Sure.
it's kind of, you know, it's more interesting, isn't it? And you're like, hey, guess what happened? You know, I just swapped a car with a boat for someone, you know, some random thing like that. Who does that, you know? So it's
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, right. It's like I had Rosie referred to it as punk rock. Like
punk
projectors
rock.
Are here. Yeah, projectors are here to be punk rockers.
Right.
You know, we say the things we see, we do the things we do it different than everybody else, and it almost inevitably magically just clicks.
Yeah.
And so when we're like doing our punk rock and we're doing us, then all of a sudden like we start building these followings or you know, and it's kind of a but I find that that's how it works. It's kind of a funny way of saying it, but I find that that's how it works. It's like when you stop trying to be like everybody else, or you stop trying to, you know, guide in a PC way, then all of a sudden it's like you're living in alignment, you're speaking your punk rock, and either people will resonate with it or they won't, you know, and it's fine either way. We're not here to guide everybody, you know?
Yeah. Too many people.
Yeah. That'd be fucking exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah. Enough's enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the biggest tragedy of being a projector was the idea of going out. It was really fun because I used to love going out. I'd go out to the clubs and, you know, I'd have a great time. And then once I started living more in alignment, I realized I also have pardon me if it goes too deep, I have a low determination. And so like my brain works better in silence. Everything works better in silence. And so going out, you go to these clubs and it's like not silent at all. And now all of a sudden it's like frequencies are way too much. You pick up the frequencies of people, the frequency of the music, the establishment, like everything just carries its own frequency. And so that's been the tragedy, is it's ruined my going out. I can only go out like maybe a few times a month, and I'm good. I'd rather do a lounge or a walk in the park or something, you know, around fewer frequencies.
Yeah. So what would be your what would you, I mean, there's so much juice in this conversation. So I think it's great. And I also want to know, what would you say if someone's new to being, let's say someone's got a chart like yours and they're new to being a projector, and they've just found out that they're a projector, what would be your top tip or top tips, like top 3, like what would you, if you were, you know, invited to give advice to that person, what would you say?
I would say first, learn how to be comfortable in your skin. Like, be comfortable with you. Really really understand or feel comfortable in your own aura. A lot of being a projector is a lot of conditioning, and so it does, like, you do get stuck with that. Who am I? you know, you find your projector, it resonates really well, but then like take a minute, develop that relationship with yourself. And I mean, this might be my second line coming out, but in developing the relationship with yourself, you you then understand more about what's yours, because projectors, I think, are highly empathic. And so like really take a minute and be comfortable taking care of yourself and finding what makes you happy and following your bliss. And it might be a process to get there, but I think I think that's probably one of my biggest things. And then just read as much as possible. Like, you can feed the mind, but don't let that take control. It's really about feeling your resonance. And so breathing, meditating, doing things that make you happy, because when you're happy, your aura penetrates out. And if you're not happy, that penetrates out as well. And so just, I don't know how solid that advice is, but that's really, I think the biggest thing is, you know, feel free, dive deep, but, you know, find that connection to yourself, like what your energy feels like, independent of words and people.
It's like learn you, learn
Yeah.
you, get to know you.
Yeah. Because I think when we see that and when we start our deconditioning process as well, I mean, projectors can be guides and processes, or, you know, in helping people find the best way to do a job, or, you know, the advice giving can always be a part of it. But I think the better you know yourself, the more you can start seeing yourself in other people, the better able you are to guide from a more, I think, solid space, because you're more solid in who you are. It's not dependent on, you know, the shifts or the other people or the other frequencies.
It's great. Yeah, Raluca enjoyed that as well. She messaged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I felt I could feel your words as well, and I could feel like it's really nice to you know, invite someone else. You know, just like feeling like how would I put it in words? Just that feeling of like, you know, because I'm often the one in what I'm doing, and I'm like, right, come on, as projectors, we need to stop being miserable and kind of, you know, live awesome lives. And it's actually really nice to just let, you know, what you were saying, just let it in, and I could feel it landing.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Oh, good. Thank you for that reflection. I'm glad that came out that way.
yeah. Super cool. Well, I hope we can stay connected in some way, and yeah, well, it's been real good to connect and hear about your journey, and especially the Colorado connection. That's very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Colorado, I feel like it's my it's the place I will be when I'm no longer going anywhere else. Colorado is where I want to just
It's my first time here, yeah, just love it. I'm sure I'll be back.
How are you finding the energy there?
Well, I'm valleys wide, and I'm really looking over the valley here. So that's amazing. And I don't, when I travel, I like to live places rather than dashing about the place. So, and I don't need to be, if I've got good food, and, you know, I've actually just stayed here in my friend's property most of the time, and, you know, just sort of learning a bit about ranch life, and, you know, the snow's fun, and it's like, it was 0 degrees, and everyone at home was like, oh, that's cold. And I'm like, yeah, Fahrenheit, not centigrade. That's like -18. So that was cool. And you know, the wildlife's amazing. Like, there's some wild cats that are just like little kittens that are running about the place. There's elk and moose and deer and you know, eagles, and yeah, it's pretty amazing when, you know, 7 elk just come and start grazing 20 meters away. You know, that's beautiful. So yeah, and you know, internet, and I live on a boat normally, so you know what you're saying about having more space. I resonated with that, because it's You know, I've got a kitchen and I can stand up and wave my arms around. You know, it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I was wondering about the boat, because I saw a couple of the interviews. You had somebody on a boat, and now you're doing the ranch life. Are you just trying a few different settings for yourself?
Yeah, well, thanks for asking. I mean, I mean, I've got an open G center, and I remember there was this period around about 30 where I felt like I had to find where I was meant to be in the world, you know, where you find the place you're meant to be. And I think I had no clue about human design, but I think I was actually, I was logically boiled it down to like people, place, and purpose. And I spent time cycling like around New Zealand and trying to find communities, and I was involved in Waldorf education and blah, blah, blah. But my conclusion after a while of struggling to find where I belong is like, actually, I belong everywhere. And what I feel is true for me is to be able to have purpose in different parts of the world. So I love being in Bali. I lived 10 years in Australia. I have a base with my boat in the southwest of England. I love Colorado now. You know, my friend's got a plan to create a retreat center here. So who knows how things can unfold. But I also love to be competent at things, and I really love being around competent people who, you know, say what I'm doing with hosting on my boat. Like right now, there's nothing happening on my boat, and it would be great if I knew someone that I could trust that could go and swap and do my life for a while. And you know, because I love doing that, but it gets same. It's like I don't want to do that my whole life. It's like, you know. But I wouldn't mind going to run someone else's project in some other part of the world, you know, like to you know, like
change the channel. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but most people seem to be their business, their project, their setup, and they don't want to let go of control and have someone else run it. So I don't know if I'm the only one, but I like having pods around the world, and of course, doing some online stuff is portable. So yeah, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because I'm very much the same way. Like I had even now, like I go to LA and I tell people I try to treat life like a working vacation. So I go to LA and I'll set up and do some massages, and then I'll go out and play, and then I do the same thing in Miami, and then New York, and then I go out in Colorado and I do same thing. And so it's like, you know, but it's changing the channel, changing the scenery, you know, just it's a really cool way of experiencing the world, I think, you know, and experiencing yourself in the world. You know, it's easy to get stuck in the mundane, but to see the possibilities that are there, I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I hate being a tourist. I love it if I've got a purpose for going somewhere. And I've known that for a while, and I think it makes perfect sense as a projector. Like if someone says, please come here and teach, can you do some human design, or come here and do this work, or, you know, like it feels like I've got a reason to go there rather than just kind of going around and staying in a hotel and kind of like, I love kite surfing, but you know, and that I go anywhere there's kite surfing, but you know, it's like, I just sort of find myself, I'm on holiday, I'm like kind of, well, why am I here? You know, like what's the point of being here? You know, whereas if someone's invited me to go and do something, it's it feels so much more fulfilling. And actually, there is one more thing I want to talk about, because we have the same motivation. I believe you've got need as well. Is that right? So
I do, yeah.
So it's like I need to feel there's some point in being somewhere. You know, like how's it for you having need as a motivation?
Yeah, it's very much the same. I think I tune in at an even more subtle level, I think, because at need, it's like, what do I need to feel good, right? Like, what do I need to feel good in this moment? And like right now, I mean, I'm a little hungry, and so it's like, if I'm a little hungry, what do I need? Maybe a little bit of sugar and a little bit of fat. So I might go somewhere and, you know, get something a little sweet.
Get some donuts.
And so that's like, What's that?
Donuts.
I mean, listen, I wouldn't put it past me. But yeah, so it's the need. Like, what do I need? And then I actually pay more attention to the transference, because the transference is fear. And so when I'm doing things out of fear, if I'm taking an appointment because I'm afraid I don't have enough money, then I'm not following my proper motivation. I know I'm in transference. And so, but yeah, need is really about like, what do I need in this moment to feel good or okay or whole? And then from there, it's like, if I'm in a situation or in an experiment, or I call it an engagement. That's how I see experimenting, is like, okay, well, in this engagement, this is what I'm serving. This is what this is calling for. This is what this needs. And so I fulfill those needs. And I'm not so much concerned about the wants, the desires, it's really about like, what does this call for? What does this need? So that's how I experience need at the micro and macro level.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere about it being like, what do I need in order to be in service to others? Like, what do I need to take care of in myself or in my life in order that I can be there to do my thing, to be there in my fullness, in service or so yeah. Yeah, but that's nice what you say there, isn't it? Because it's like, again, it comes back to that thing with human design, is really with human design, if we're doing it properly, it's about a deep exploration of the not self and the mind, and like, where is the mind grabbing the steering wheel, and where am I, letting fear come in if my motivations need, and and I guess on so many levels, we've got bitterness as the not self theme for Projector. We've got all the open center not self themes. And it's, if nothing else, human design gives us these little things of saying, hey, here's a way you can tell that you're way out of whack, or your mind is running the show, or, I guess actually, when people say, oh, you're in your not self, it's actually a real gift, isn't it? Rather than, because it normally pisses me off. I've got all the death gates, but it's actually for someone to say, hey, you're in your not self. Are you in your not self? Could it be your not self? It's actually a real gift, isn't it, to have someone else point that out? And maybe I'll try saying, actually, could you say a bit more? Like, I don't respond to it too well normally.
Yeah, I don't, I think we're always vacillating between ourself and not self. And so like, it's like the inner authority and outer authority. If we're talking, we're in our outer authority. We're not in our inner authority, Well, if we're talking and we both have open heads and we're sharing ideas, we're both in our not self. That's kind of, it's a funny way that I experience it. But yeah, that's interesting. That's fun. What's that?
Yeah, I got defined up, throat up, so I'm all good.
Oh, perfect.
I can talk shit.
me, I can't.
Classic.
That's awesome.
Classic.
Yeah. I have one more story.
I think I have done that.
And then we can.
You're gonna tell us another story. Good. Let's have a story.
All right, one more story. Yeah, this is it was a noticing, but I was noticing like I was withdrawn. I was definitely deep in my hermit phase, and I was wanting some social interaction, but I didn't really want to call any friends or anything. And so I went down to Starbucks on the corner, and I go up and I'm ordering my drink, and she asked if she can have my name, and I said Shathid, and it just came out. And it's something that I do every once in a while just to mess with baristas, because if you spell it, or if you write out Shathid, it's Shitthead. Well, it spells shithead. And so I would tell them Shathid. And so they wrote it down, and all of a sudden it's like all of the energy in Starbucks just erupted, because this guy comes in and says Shathid. you know, and they're like, I'm trying to get them to say shithead and they won't do it. And it gets in this like really fun exchange that was very social, that like lit up the whole place. It was so cool. And eventually the barista who gave me the drink, he actually said it. But I was like, that is the signature success in its smallest iteration. But it was hysterical, because it was like just me being me, and just kind of a little salty and kind of a little like funny. It yielded an experience that was very social and that was very engaging, and it was enough. And then I go home with my Starbucks and went back to watching TV and, you know, chilling out,
everything
playing
you
guitar.
wanted.
Yeah, everything I needed.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
That's great. If people want to connect or stay in touch, do you have like could you maybe send Raluca a link, or we can put that in the description? Is there a way for people to connect with you or to follow you, or do you do such things, or
yeah, absolutely. I have an Instagram. You know, I do keep up on social media. I think that's right in line with my hermiting. But yeah, I have an Instagram. I can send the links to that as well, the Instagram and Facebook. And then I also have a website.
What's your Instagram, so people can find you?
My Instagram is Russell Pappas. I got really fortunate.
Brilliant.
There's not many people on Instagram
We'll
named
put a
Russell
link
Pappas. Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. It would be fun to,
The
if
first
anybody
one?
has anything you can what's that?
So, were you saying you were the first Russell Pappas on Instagram?
I'm the first one that got Russell Pappas as the handle.
Yeah.
I didn't need to do like
nice.
Big Russ 0365. Yeah, no. But yeah, if anybody wants to reach out, feel free. DM and Messenger. It's all good.
Brilliant. Well, thanks, Russell. It's been great hanging out. And Raluca especially
this was
enjoyed all
so
your
much fun. Thank you
too.
so much for doing this. I think it's really good for projectors to see other projectors and not a comment, not just a comment feed. So I mean, I'd really like to take my hat off to you as well for putting this together. It's been fun to see it unfold and to take part in it. This has been a lot of fun. So thank you very much, Dunstan.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thanks, Russell. I'm letting that in. It's just I crave something a bit, you know, I'm looking for that depth to bridge my split and all, but I crave something a bit deeper than just like, you know, the keyboard warrior scenario. So yeah. And it's I mean, I'm pretty selfish. I just get to meet different projectors and I learn a lot and you know, have that experience and make friends with different people. So that's fun. Yeah,
well, it's fun to see what magic happens when we're being selfish.
Hell yeah. Rock and roll. Well, I will who knows, if we catch up again, I'll really look forward to it. We've got a little lag. You go on mute now. Come on, come back.
Oh, there we go. All right.
There you are.
Thank you very much, Dunstan.
Say it again.
I look forward to keeping up with you.
Yeah, rock and roll.
All right, have a great day, man.
Brilliant. What was it? The punk thing?
Oh, it's all punk rock
again.
Yeah, it's
punk
just
rock.
Punk rock.
There we go.
Punk
rock.
I love punk rock. Awesome, brother. You guys have a good day.
Boom. See you, man. Ciao.
We'll see you.